Ciao, this is Marc Marcantonio. Let's go ahead and start the installation process of the Revolution Sonar turret system, and I am going to be doing this on my 52-inch Ghost trolling motor. So it should be the same for whether you're using a 47-inch Ghost, couple slight differences which I'll discuss as I go through this, or any other like the Garmin or whatever, very similar process. So let's get started and see how it goes. So here's my 52-inch Ghost trolling motor. I've got it in the deployed position on my boat trailer, and probably the first things that I'll do is I will go ahead and take the transducers off. I've got the lower transducer mounted in the forward mode, which you can see, and the upper one in the scout mode, also referred to as perspective mode for your Garmin users. And I've got an Ashmore system where clamps the cables to the shaft, and a bracket up top by Ashmore, which is used to keep all my cables neat and tidy, running along the side of my troller motor and then down into the bow plate of my Ranger Z20 bass boat. This is a 2008 model that I got in 2007, and I will be mounting the position sensor, or I guess it's called a pivot sensor, behind the bracket, the back bracket of the cable management system on the Ghost troller motor, and I'll get into that later. And then I'll have to take the side plate off of the motor, off the Ghost troller motor, and route the cable behind the side plate and out the end of the side plate, and then down underneath my bow cover, and I'll do all the wiring up underneath the bow plate, underneath the bow, and that's where I'll put the junction box, connect the power cable to a fuse box, and do all my NEMA wiring and everything. And then I'll run the foot pedal cables out through a hole that I have in the foot pedal recessed area, and I'll mount the wheel steering section of the Revolution Sonar. I haven't decided whether I'm going to put it on the right side yet, or the left side, or up here in the front area, or back further. So when I initially mount it, I am not going to screw it down to the deck yet, and I'll try it out on the water in a couple different places and see what area settles out to be the best, and that's where I'll physically permanently mount it then at that point. So I'll do this in segments, and probably start tomorrow. Just received it today, so we'll get that going. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and remove both of these transducer mounts from the shaft, remove the clips and the cable management system, take that all off, and then I'll take these tie wraps that I've got to secure the cable management system clips in place, and we'll get that going. So this involves using a 3/16 ounce Allen wrench, and we'll just go ahead and loosen all of these. Okay, got two of them done. All right, one bracket off. I'm going to go ahead and put that back together again so I don't lose the screws. a good idea to take photographs of your whole setup, both before and after, so that in case you forget how anything goes, you can refer back to your photographs and remember how it all's supposed to work. And I'll remove the transducers from each of these brackets after I get them all off. Again, this is the 3/16 Allen wrench. Of course, you could use a Allen wrench and a drill, cordless drill, and remove these quicker, but this works fine. Alright. Okay, lost one of the rubber pieces. Stick that back in there. Alright. Okay. Remove these clips. Get my trusty angle cutters. By the way, if you need to buy tools, you cannot beat this Cuda brand of tools. They are absolutely sturdy, sharp, very good. Let's cut this where I can reuse this again. Okay, now let's see what size Allen wrenches these are. I just received my Revolution Sonar unit, and I am going to, I just received it yesterday afternoon. I shot the unboxing video yesterday. Now I'm going to go ahead and start shooting the installation process that I'm going to do on my 52-inch Ghost trolling motor. The process is the same for other trolling motors with just a few minor differences. The concept is the same, so this will be helpful no matter what type of a unit you have. I use Lowrance Pro units and the Ghost trolling motor, and like I say, it's the 52-inch model, so the rail that you see me mount onto here is going to be longer than the rail that you mount on the 47-inch model. At the moment, I'm going to shoot this in increments because it's raining outside. I'm under an umbrella right now. There's an umbrella over my head, keeping the camera dry and hopefully keeping the video of a good enough quality that you'll be able to see what's going on. The first thing I'm going to do this first segment is I'm going to take off this clip that goes onto the Ghost trolling motor, the cable management clip, and I'm going to be installing a pivot sensor here. So that'll be the first step that I do. Okay, I'm going to take my Cuda diagonal pliers. Here's another little tip for you. Even though these clips do a good job of holding the cables, because I also have my transducer cables running along here, I have dual AT2 units. I use a tie wrap around the back of the clip and around the front to help hold all the cables in place. And the first thing I'm going to do is cut that off. Okay, take those out, take that out. Now I'm going to remove this clip. It's because I'm going to put the pivot sensor behind the clip. So the pivot sensor bracket is in the small parts kit. Get the rain off of it. In that box that you find on the underside of the foam packing. And that's what this is here. And we're going to go ahead and install that behind this bracket right here. Okay, so again, this is the pivot sensor. This is the magnet side. It's going to be mounted on the back of this clip. This clip is the closest one to the hinge of the trolley motor. So I'm going to remove this and put this behind it. By the way, I purchased some T-handles, and I was only looking for the SAE ones because everything that comes with the Revolution Sonar uses SAE standard, but I found out the Ghost motor uses metric. So luckily the set that I bought has both metric T-handles and SAE T-handles. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this now and then mount that sensor behind it. You have to hold your finger behind the clip to hold the metal disc in the back, and then you can unscrew this from the front. There we go. This really wouldn't be hard if you were ambidextrous. All right. Oh, there goes my umbrella. Luckily, the rain stopped for a moment. There we go. That's how we want it positioned. All right. Good. Okay, now let's put that back together loosely for now. Okay, there's the position sensor. You can see the top of it there. Let me turn it this way for you. And the T-nut is on the back there. So here's the magnet, and we're going to move on to the next step of marking where that needs to be. Okay, we've got the pivot sensor mounted onto the side of the Ghost troller motor. Now I'm going to lower my motor so I can see and position where the other part of the sensor goes. So just pull the table. Now be careful as you do this on your boat to make sure that the motor doesn't hit anywhere. I have just enough clearance on my trailer so that I can do this on the trailer. Okay, my motor is down. Now, Maybe I should have left my cables off. Probably would have been a good idea to leave these off until I got the next step done, but I'm going to be able to do it like this anyway. Okay, now I'm going to take this blue painter's tape that came inside my Revolution Sonar box holding the back parts together, and I'm going to use it to mark where my pivot sensor magnet is. And I know you can't see this very well. I'll move the camera in a second. If I just put that tape down, let me smooth it down over the edges. Okay, get this in position. Mark the center of the magnet. Okay, I think that's got it marked pretty well. And I'll leave that tape on, and then I'll show you how I mount the next piece behind the plate, side plate. I'll have to take the side plate off of the trolling motor. Okay, let's install the other part of the position sensor. I'm going to go ahead and retract this. Wood in here. Okay. Transducers out of the way. Okay, there's my tape. You can see where my mark is. So next thing to do is to install this wire and position sensor, and that's going to go on the underside of this plate. I'm going to stick it on the top edge right here, screw it down, and then run the cable through the back plate. So the first thing I got to do is take the side plate off, and in order to take the side plate off, I also need to take this nose plate off. So we'll go ahead and start working on that and get those off. Let's see, what size are those? There we go. Okay, this is a 5mm Allen head. Take these two screws off. I've had this Ghost motor for 3 years now. This is the first time I've ever taken this side plate off, so it's a new experience for me. Okay, make sure we get that out of the way. Okay, so that just slides forward. I'm going to leave the Allen screws in it. So. Now take this side plate off. Again, these are all metric apparently on this. Okay, so that's a 3mm. And you know what? I'm going to take a picture of that so I remember that screw is that one. It's not a bad idea to take photographs as you go along so that you remember where everything went and how it went. Okay. Never know what could happen. And interesting. These threads have a little bit of a powder coat on them, and it's in good shape though, so it looks like it was actually some type of a sealant. So I may put some blue lock thread in there when I'm. Let's go ahead and put this screw in this bag so I don't lose it. Next one is right there. So this is the second screw. Okay. And the third screw is right there in the back. I'm thinking I'm going to want the cable to come out over in this area here. Put a little piece of tape there to mark that. I think I'll put it right. Huh. Should have cleaned it first. Okay, I think I'll put this tape here to mark where I want the cable to exit the side plate. And where's my marker? Okay. We'll check that out afterwards and see if that works out okay. Okay, where was I? Taking that last screw out. Okay, get the side plate out, throw some debris away. Okay, now I'm going to be moving around with this a little bit, so I think I'll take these two screws out now so I don't lose them. 1, 2. Now you don't have to go to this trouble of putting the screws back in the screw holes. I only do this just because there's a very strong possibility I'm going to get interrupted in the middle of this project. If not once, multiple times. And it's always harder to remember if you do it much later. So I want to make sure that I have things placed where they need to go. I'll put that other screw back in while I'm at it too. Okay, here's what the plate looks like. So now what I have to do is I have to mount this in this position right here onto the edge, the very front edge of that, right over where the magnet's going to hit. And so I'll mark the holes. Get it lined up. Okay, looks good. One. Two. Okay. I'm gonna mark where those. Okay. Now comes the squeamish part. First thing I gotta do is drill these two hole locations. I use a 1/16 inch drill bit. I'll drill these 1/16 inch drill bit. Looks good. Now I got to cut away a piece of plastic there to be able to fold the wire down behind the back of this. So again, that orients like this. I'm going to cut that, and then we're going to route the wire back here to come out over here. So I can take my CUDA diagonal cutters. Like that. Pretty thick plastic. That's good. Yeah. Okay. As I said before, I've marked the two holes. I've drilled them with a 1/16 inch drill bit, so both of those holes are now drilled. And then I went and carved away a piece of the plastic where the wires are going to loop down through. By the way, that plastic is a little thicker than I thought it was going to be. It was a little more trouble than I thought it would be, but now this will fit in there and the wires will go down. And then what I've done is I've marked a pathway through here, and so that the wire comes out at this point. This is where I decided would work best for my particular setup. The way I have these wires going into my bow plate, I think that I am going to want the wires to come out right here so that I can put them in this wire loom and keep it clean. So once I marked that spot, then I figured out what path I would need to cut away. So there's my mark there. I'm going to cut out a notch here, a notch here, a notch here, a notch here, and a notch here. And here's where my pivot sensor will go. I'm going to take this into the shop and do this. These thick pieces here and here are probably better done with a Dremel Moto tool, and these would be easy to just cut with wire cutters, with diagonal cutters. But these big ones, they are heavy. So I'm going to take that inside, and I'm going to do that there, and then I'll bring it back out and install it. I think while I'm in there, I'll go ahead and install the pivot sensor into these two holes also. So I'll take my screws with me. and all this. And I used a file, by the way, to file this smooth in the inside. And I think that's a good idea too, to help protect the wires. I may even put a dab of sealant of silicone here and in each one of these holes, just so there's no vibration moving the wires back and forth and causing them to wear. I don't think they will anyway, but I tend to be a little anal when it comes to working on my boat, and I like everything to be perfect, so I'll probably put some clear silicone at each one of those points, just to keep the wire from vibrating and moving around. Okay, let's go ahead and mount this pivot sensor in the screws, with the screws. These are in the little Ziploc bag that says pivot sensor, bracket, magnet, and screws. So started, get this one started, make sure my edge is matched. Sorry for blocking the screen, but I can either see what I'm doing and block the screen, or show you what I'm not doing. Okay. Let's see. Edge. Yep, it's going to be perfect. Snug it up. Sure isn't going to come loose, I can tell you that. Okay, got that mounted in place. The wires going in there. Now let's cut out a channel there and there. Okay. Okay, that one was deeper than I needed to go. But get it all smoothed out, get the tape back off. And that'll get it out. Okay. That's how it'll end up being routed through there. And like I say, I'm going to put some dabs of silicone at each one of these crossing points, just to keep it from vibrating after I smooth the holes out. Okay, very good. Okay, like I said, I'm going to put some sealant in each of these, more to immobilize the wires during rough water. This is marine goop. It's not easy to find anymore, but it's still out there on the market. And I use it on my boat in a lot of places because it is watertight and it is UV resistant. So I'm just going to put a dab on each spot. Okay, a little messy there, but we'll clean it up. That'll seal it nicely. Oh, I missed one. All right. And I'll just let that set up. And then I'll install this back onto the boat. Got to get that off so that I can do the wiring underneath it. Okay. Okay, now I'm going to prepare the power cable. Here's the power cable, and I am going to, let's see, I'm going to put some ends on it that go to my fuse block. So just pull that off. These are heat shrink, and because they have the heat shrink protector on it, you want to use ratcheting type heat shrink. These are made for this. They don't cut the insulation, and oh, that one's too loose. Got to do it again. Okay, let's put the other one on. Okay, got that done, all sealed up. Okay, I've got the pivot sensor mounted on top of the side plate of the Ghost trolling motor, and that's on the right up against the front edge of the plate, so it's where it needs to be. And you can see I notched out a spot here for the wiring to go right there, and here also, and here, and here, here, and here. And then I put some plumber's goop in there to keep the wires from vibrating in here and causing wear on the wires themselves, and also to act as a strain relief. And you can see the position, or the pivot sensor plugs into the bus bar that Revolution Sonar provides, a nice machined out of billet aluminum bus bar, and you can see all the different cables and where they attach. This one is the network cable. There'll be a T on the end of it, and that'll go into my NEMA network. And then the second one goes directly to the foot control, and to see the foot control, okay, here's the foot control that the other end of that connector goes to the fitting at the top here, which you can see. And then the middle cable with that end on it goes to the motor module, so that'll connect to the connector that's on the motor module, which you can see right there. That's where that cable will connect to. And the pivot sensor is already connected to this one. And then I have the power cable. And here's the power cable that comes with it. And I added those two connectors on the end, which I showed you earlier, with heat shrink connectors and waterproof seal inside there. So now this is ready to go back onto the side of the motor. This bus bar will go inside the bow under the bow plate of my boat. And then the foot control cable will go up through a hole in my hull into the well, recessed foot pedal well, and attached to my new foot rotary control for the Revolution Sonar. And this one again goes to the motor, so that'll be taped to the side of my transducer cables, and this one will be connected to my Blue Seas fuse box that I have inside the bow of my Ranger bass boat, which gets separate power and runs off of a separate deep cycle lithium battery that I have for all of my dedicated electronics. So it's on a separate circuit from my starting battery. And so now next step is I'll go ahead and take this to the boat and get this mounted. Here's the rail that mounts, and it's got where the transducers mount. If you have the 52-inch Ghost like I do, this rail comes in two pieces. It's temporarily screwed together here. And if you have the 47-inch Ghost, this is all one piece and doesn't require any assembly. But I'll go ahead and assemble this, and to do so you're going to need a 3/16-inch Allen wrench. Let me get that position on here. And you simply take these two Allen wrench screws out. And that's what's nice about this rail arrangement is it's got all of these different screw hole positions where you can attach extra transducers, other accessories, and so forth. So we're going to attach those right there. On this side. And you can start them by hand. And when done with these two screws, it'll be as strong and as rigid as a single piece unit. Again, it is only for the longer 52-inch Ghost that you need to do what I just did. Otherwise, this comes already attached for the 47-inch Ghost. So that's how that attaches. All Cerakoted billet aluminum. That's all machined. There are the two transducer mounts with less than 1 degree increments on each one, so you can fine tune and adjust everything. Really well made rail. Okay, that'll go on to the trolling motor itself, onto the Ghost. Okay, inside, this is inside behind my bow panel. I've got a fuse box in there, which you probably can't see. I'm going to go ahead and hook up the power wires to one of the terminals there, and I've got a 3-amp fuse in that slot. And again, the power wire is right here, so I'm going to hook each one of these to the fuse, one to the positive where the fuse is and the other to the negative bus bar on there, and I just do that with a Phillips screw head. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is hook up the NEMA 2000 cable. Here's the T, and here's my NEMA 2000 network cable that's in my bow. I'm just going to go ahead and take off this terminator off of the one end. Figure out how to get a good grip on this. There we go. You can either twist the maroon part away or the black part down the other way. Either way, twist them both at the same time, pull it apart. Remember, the T always goes up, so stick that like that. All your devices go onto the top part of the T, not the end of the T. Turn both of these wheels together, get them tight, reinstall your terminator at the end. Got the screws in, back one, and now the middle one. Again, this is the 3mm, 3mm Allen wrench. Put the last one in at the nose. Those piece back on, putting these two Allen head screws in, and it takes the 3/16 inch Allen wrench. One thing I noticed after I put this nose piece on was that I had a gap on this side. It wasn't even. So make sure you get that pushed all the way in so that that gap closes. Back up a minute. Here's the foot control module. Very well made, like I've said before. Here's the cable I ran into my footwell on my boat, on my Ranger. I'm going to connect to this connector right here. And these are all waterproof connections. Okay, that's connected. I am not going to mount it to my carpet yet because I do not know if I want to put it here or on the other side or up in the front more. So I'm going to leave it unhooked for now and move it around until I find where it's going to work out best for me. And then I'll go ahead and anchor it in place. and it comes with tamper resistant screws, so someone can't just come up to your boat and unhook it real quick and unhook the cable and steal your pedal. So that's a good feature. Now the next thing I'm going to do is work on removing this bearing point here, and this is where the motor is going to attach. The motor itself, here's the motor, and this is where it's going to attach, and it'll be on this side like that. So I'm going to start working on that now, and it's starting to rain, of course. Okay, 4mm wrench. Take a little bit up of each side. I have not had this off since I bought the motor, and I've had it for over 3 years now. So this will be the first time I've removed this. It'll be interesting to see how that works out. Okay. Not bad. I'll save this. The mechanism that is used with the Revolution Sonar motor clamp is supposed to be much better, holds tighter and holds the bearing in place better. So, okay, that one's done. Okay. Let's put that back together. So that I don't lose the screws. Come on, Rain, hold off. Hold off, Rain. You're making me hurry through it. Okay. Having a piece of wood helps support the motor in the up position, making it easier to work on, which is a pretty good trick. Okay, I'll set that over there. Now I got to take this motor apart so that I can put it on, and there's a ring inside here, and that ring is what clamps it to the motor, and it'll sit up there just fine. So I'll get working on that next. Yeah, the upper shaft doesn't move on the Ghost motor. We clamp onto that for support, and then we turn the lower part. So I am going to take these 4 screws out. So draw it, slide off. So I'm taking these 4 screws out. This is really nice the way he's put all this together. Okay, that's now off, and if you notice, I'll set this down, take the screw out, that these clamshell pieces have pins in them, and these stainless steel pins guide the cover into position so that you can make sure that you install it the correct way when you reinstall it, and those pins guide it right into the right place. So very well made. By the way, this is all coated with the top quality Cerakote coating, so that is really nice. Okay, now we can take this all apart like this. And here comes the rain. And there's the parts. This is the ring that's going to grip onto the lower shaft, and these lower shafts are not perfectly round, and because they're not perfectly round, he had to come up with Paul, who's the inventor of this, had to come up with a special way to clamp onto it and be able to make it to work properly. So we'll start on that. Okay, so this is a two-piece clamshell arrangement, and this is the only part that actually touches the trolling motor shaft. So it's got two screws that hold the clamshell together. Take those apart. There we go. And just be careful, because the pins in here can fall out. There are some extra ones included, but make sure that they don't fall out. Okay, we've got that apart now. This is the main drive gear. You know what? I'm going to have to abort this. The rain's starting to get too hard, and I'm going to go ahead and continue this tomorrow when I get a chance. And I'll leave these here, put that back together. Okay, I got a break in the weather, so I'm going to try to get this thing installed. And I've got this centering bushing pulled down after I removed that clamshell clamp that holds this in place. I noticed there's some silicone on here because this is a split plastic bushing, and they sealed the edge with silicone to keep water out. But I also noticed a slight tint of rust in a few places on this bearing. And so I'm going to put some silicone spray in using blaster silicone spray. And I'll get that centering ring up there as good as I can. This cleaned off. You can see they had the original clamp embedded some grooves in there, 2 grooves, because of how that holds on. Here was the clamp that I took off of there, and you can see it's got ridges inside, and those ridges are what bit into the shaft here. Before I go any further, let me show you something, just to help clarify how this all works. I look at this is the motor, and this is what drives the unit, and the way I look at it is this section of the motor here clamps above the ring onto the fixed part of the shaft that doesn't move, and that's what holds the motor in place. And then the center section has the part that grips the lower shaft and turns the lower shaft. And then the bottom section here is where the rail mounts that your transducer mounts on, and that's what spins around this shaft. And that's what makes it a coaxial mount, is that it's attached at the top up here, and it's attached down at the bottom with a centering ring that you'll see me install later. And so the top part clamps onto the upper shaft, the middle clamps onto the top of the bottom shaft that moves, and the bottom part of the motor assembly is where the rail attaches. So that's how that's going to go on, just to give you a concept that'll help you understand this. Now I'm going to mount, take this apart. I got the 4 screws out for this part. Make sure my pins stay in place there. And then I'm taking this ring out, and that's what's going to go here and grip the bottom shaft. And you saw right before it rained yesterday where I had removed these 2 screws. I'll do that again now because I stuck them back in there so I wouldn't lose them. To get the right wrench. And that is the, man, it's so hard to read these markings on here. 9/64. Looks like a 9/64 Allen wrench. Take those out. There's one on each side. The other one. Okay. And then this comes apart. You see the pins, stainless steel pins, and then it's going to go onto here with the gear teeth down. Put that together, and then I will be pushing that up into the bearing when I go to tighten that down. Okay, so I'll put both clamshell pieces around the shaft with the gear teeth pointing on the down side, these teeth down. And I'll start tightening this. I won't get it all the way tight yet, just snug. Put my other side in, I'll turn this around, put the other screw in. Okay, now I'm going to put upward pressure against that. Tighten that. Okay, got that tight. Okay, let's see how that turns. Okay, now I'm going to go, there's 4 screws that tighten those little flanges that clamp tightly against the shaft. I'm going to tighten those, get the right wrench. Not that one, I need to go smaller. This is a 1/8 inch Allen. Just going to tighten each one down a little bit at a time to try to get it as even as possible. Okay, I think that takes care of that part. Now we've got this piece, and I got to take this apart first. And we'll take this screw out and this screw out. So that's a 9/64 Allen wrench. Take those out. That one out. And then we got to get 3 screws that are through this hole here, and those are smaller. Let's see, those are smaller than that. Okay, so something to warn you about. I went and bought a set of these T-handles, both in SAE and in metric, and found out that they're the size I need to get the flex ring out undone, and this part of the device isn't included in that kit. So I had to search through all my tools, and luckily I found an old set of Allen wrenches that has the right size. And so you have to get the right size so you can remove this from the flex ring. There's 3 screws on each side of the flex ring. I guess, you know, I should take the the top off first. Let's do that. The top 2 screws that hold the rail on. Okay, so I found a Allen key that fits into the small hole that gets me down to the Allen screws that are in the flex ring that's inside here. There's 3 holes, one here, one here, and one here. And I've got those all loosened all the way around now. It's all loosened. I'll set my wrench down where I won't lose it. Okay, now I've got the Delrin gear off, and then these are the 3 screws that I just loosened from the other side, from these 3 holes. Now I'm going to take these 3 Allen head screws out so that I can remove this ring. And again, I need to use that small Allen wrench. And these aren't in real tight, and you don't, when you go to tighten them back up, you don't want to make them too tight. Hopefully the light's good enough to see. Little wrench is tough to hold on to. All right. This one's not quite out. All right. Okay, all three are loose. This comes out. And now this goes around the shaft, and Paul tells me it doesn't matter whether it's this side or this side. So we're going to go ahead and do it like this, and you just twist these apart a little bit, slide that over the shaft, and then we're going to attach it to this piece. Oh, let's see. Yep, we're going to attach it to this piece. Let that slide down for the minute, and take these screws out. This is where the rail will attach. So this is the very bottom of the whole motor assembly. So you just have to loosen the top screw of these 4 screws. You just loosen the top screw, and that's the longest screw in the whole assembly. And make sure your pins stay in place. And then we're going to go ahead and slide this ring up, and stick this back on the shaft. And I'll tighten one screw here. Actually, I'll tighten both of them a little bit. Okay, now that won't come off. I'm going to let that slide down to the bottom. I'm going to get this other drive gear, and I will separate that. Oh, I already separated it. And just pull it apart. I took the screws out, the 2 screws out. Now, this one, the gear goes up. Put the 2 halves on. Like that. Okay, now the pins are in place. So this one, the top one, the gear goes down. The second one, the gear goes up. And we'll go ahead and put the side screws in on this. Okay, just tighten them a little and give it a little extra. Not going to tighten them too hard. All these screws that you're putting into these Delrin pieces, as soon as they feel snug, just give them a little extra turn, but don't crank them down too hard. You don't want to split it. Okay, now we'll bring this back up, and we're going to get that flex ring mounted. First you mount it into the bottom part, then you mount it into this gear. So get it lined up. Didn't get it into the hole. Yep, that's in the hole. Okay. It's always harder to do this when you're trying to do it in front of a camera. And also when you're trying to do it before it gets rainy again. I'm not tightening them all the way down yet. I'm just getting them in position and close to the bottom. This flex ring that he invented is the magic that makes this happen. It kind of allows this joint to move and articulate like a CV joint or differential, any of those flex joints. Okay, now I'm gonna just snug them up a little bit at a time. Okay, now try to get him lined up and into this one. Oh. Okay, there's one started. So I'm trying to get this screw into the hole right there. There we go. It's amazing how he figured out how to engineer this. Get that started. And before I tighten it down, I'm going to do all three. Get started. Okay. Coming on nicely. Do it nice and evenly all the way around. Third one. Okay. Okay, that's all the way in. And this one. Okay, they're all in. I'm just going to give them a little more. 1, 2, 3. Okay, now that's all together. Now let's get to the rest of this. I'm going to take the motor cover off, make sure my pins are still okay. Now I'm going to take this clamp off. This is the ring again at the top, and that's what holds it to the upper shaft. That looks like a 5/32. It's so hard to see the markings on this. Yes, 5/32 Allen. Take these 4 screws off. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and mount the motor, and I've got all of the shaft pieces all put together. I'm going to refer to this bearing collar a couple times, so I want you, when I mention bearing collar, silver bearing collar, this is the piece I'm talking about. So you can do all these pieces together. Okay, so we slide this one up, this whole assembly, and we're going to fit it into the grooves in here. The silver bearing collar goes in this top groove, and then the main drive gear goes in this next groove down, and then the part that turns the rail goes in the bottom groove. turn it on this way a little further. Maybe that's a good idea so you can see. Okay, so I'm putting this locking collar on. I'm going to get a screw started within the upright position. I'm just going to get it started for now. Get another one on the top. And then I can let go of it. Okay, now I can do this easier. And I'll put the other 2 screws in. So there's 4 total. I'll show you that again in a minute. I'm going to leave them loose for the moment because I'm going to reposition this motor. I like to position the motor so that when the motor is retracted, it'll be on the inside. So let me show you that. I'll turn it this way so that when the motor is completely retracted, the motor for the Revolution Sonar is on the inside of my mount where it's protected. I like my prop and my motor to be on the inside so that when I'm docked at a dock, I don't smash them into the dock. Okay, now here's where I'm going to want to show you a little trick. If you look right here, here's some of that silver collar poking through that I was talking about. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that collar is covered. See, when I push down on the motor and the bracket, it covers that collar, and that allows the spacing for these gears to be proper when you put the rear cover over top of the motor, and everything will line up better. So I am going to pull this down and tighten them, but I got to set the camera down to do that. Okay. Again, I'm going to compress that down and then tighten my 4 Allen screws. I'm going to do it evenly, get them snug first. Okay, make sure my motor's lined up where I want it. Nope, it's down a little further. I gotta loosen that, turn it up a little. I like everything nice and plumb. There we go. Press that down. So those 4 Allen screws that I'm tightening are the only part that holds this whole motor assembly to the trolling motor. And you're going to notice that there will be a gap between these clamshell pieces, and I'll show you that in a minute. And this is probably the only place where you're going to see a gap where clamshells meet together, and you just want to make sure you have it even on both sides. It's a little tighter on this side. I'm going to loosen this side. And then tighten this side. And that helps keep everything lined up when you have the gap even. Okay, I think that's got it. show you that gap now. So I'm talking about this gap between this clamshell locking ring and the motor base, and it needs to be about the same as the gap on this side. You probably don't have enough light to see that. Okay, so those are the 4 screws that I just tightened. I've got the gears in place. Okay, now I'm going to fit the cover over the back here. Grab that. So you want this lined up so that the narrow ring, you want it lined up so that top ring fits around this gear, the drive gear, like that, and it just slips right on, and that will you'll have no gap on that piece once you put that on. And that's just the cover. So I'm going to set that there and put the camera back. Okay, now these are a little bit smaller Allen head screws. These are 9/64. I'm going to stick the 4 screws in. And this is just a cover. So stick all 4 of those in. Okay, now I'm just going to snug those up. Okay, now you see how I can turn this by hand? There's a little bit of resistance because you're fighting the motor, but it's not hurting it. And you want to be able to do this. You want to be able to turn it by hand. If it's not turning by hand, then you probably have the gears binding that top where you put the motor over the silver collar. It probably didn't get lined up properly. Okay, so that's all ready. The next step will be to put the transducer rail on. Okay, now we are going to mount the transducer rail onto the motor. The first thing we got to do is to get the bottom bracket, and that's in the small parts box right there. And that just goes around the shaft, and as you can see, it just spins around the shaft. And basically I'll take these screws out that are already mounted in here, and then these screws will go up into this part, and that'll go down on this ring, and that will be where the transducers mount. You can also mount other accessories there. I'll take these screws out first. This is amazing how he manufactured this, machined out of solid aluminum. It's not a cast part, it's a machine part. It's unbelievable. You can mount 3 transducers on this if you want. You can mount your hydro wave to this, for those of you who use hydro waves. Okay, and this just slides in like that, and this will fit over top of there. Take those screws out up top. By the way, these top 2 screws are longer than the others, and that's because they have to go a further distance through material. So you don't want to mix those up. Those are one difference that you need to pay attention to. I'm going to keep those in my hand. and take the shorter ones out. Okay, I got the 2 long screws. I'm going to put those in first. So we just put this up against it. I'll stick that in there. Okay, far enough to hold it in place. Now I'll take my ring down here. Okay, I'll take one of those screws there and put that in. Okay, that's how the rail is going to go on. I'll put my other long screw in. Just going to bring them so they're snug. And after I get all 4 in, then I'll tighten each one just a shade tighter. Again, it's going into a piece of Delrin here, so I don't want to over tighten them. It's nice the way these are all recessed. Okay. Now I'm just giving each one just a little extra twist. Okay, now let's put the other screws in down at the bottom part. And there's 4 screws, 2 on each side. Okay. All right. There it is. Look at how close this stays to your rail, to your shaft of the trolling motor. And then your transducers sit right here. Okay, going to mount the transducers now. I'm going to mount my scout view first. This is the one I'm going to use for my scout. Here's the bracket that came in the small parts box. That's an accessory I ordered, and it came with 2 screws that came inside that plastic box that said transducer mounting screws, and that goes between the bracket and the back of the transducer. And I'm going to snug it up fairly tight, but it still allow me to make adjustments, which I'm going to want to do on the water. Okay, so that's about like that. Now in the small parts box, they're also, for the accessory of the perspective or scout view, you get a knob also, which you use. So this needs to be basically mount it on the front of it like this. And we'll use the knob. Trying to turn it so the camera can see it. All right. I can tighten it up and move it to where however angle I want, which is nice. Put it right there for now. Now my other transducer, my forward view transducer, is going to go on. And here's the one of the two screws that were in that little plastic box. It'll go in the back of the transducer through the mount. Should get that lined up right. There we go. I've got my hand around the shaft. I'm using my fingers to tighten it up. Move the rail around. Okay. Probably about there. When we get it out on the water, make any final adjustments. Okay. So there it is. Now I'll get the cable management clips and put them on. Run this up the rail. Like that. Okay, now we're going to attach the cables for the transducer onto the rail. The Revolution Sonar comes with some cable clamps. They're in this little box that's in the small parts box. There's clamps like this for two, if you have two transducers like I do, so that you can mount both cables securely to the rail. And then there are clips in here if you only have a single transducer cable that you need to anchor, and they provide the screws for that. And in this box you also have a couple extra stainless steel pins if you ever lose those. So I've got I'm going to start putting these to the rail, and let's see, got to get the right Allen head wrench for this. Okay, and this is a 3/16 inch Allen head screw that goes through here. So hopefully you can see this okay. I'm going to put it in this screw right here on the rail. I'm going to put the screw in that hole. So I'll get my cables in here. Trying to get it in as low of one as I can to keep the cables tight to the motor. Okay. It just screws right into that rail. Straight, slack out. Okay, now let's make sure I got enough. Yep, I Still got enough movement to move it up and down. Maybe give it a little more slack. I think that's better. Give it a little more slack. This one will move up, so that's no problem. Okay, now get the clamp straight and tighten it down. All right. Now I'll put this one up. I'll put it up on this screw right there. In that hole, I should say. Slack pulled out of those. Okay. Nice and clean. Leave this Ashmore. Gonna leave this Ashmore cable guide on. See how that works with it. Should work fine. Should be a help. And then I'll also run the cable for the motor down through there. Okay, let's do that now. Okay, here's my cable. Run that over. I'll tie wrap it to these. Let's see if I left this one loose enough. Nope. Did I leave that one loose enough? No. Okay, so I'll cut those off. See if there's room in there to fit the fitting. Oh, it won't fit. Okay, well, won't quite fit through the Ashmore cable guide. So I'm gonna have to... Anyway, the cable goes. Let's see. I'll be attaching this cable to the motor. This get it lined up right. There we go. Don't have a lot of room to work in here. Okay, and then I will route the cable up along this cable. Okay, we'll be able to route it through here. I just have to remove the Ashmore bracket from the bottom of the trolling motor. And again, these are metric screws on here. So I've got to use my metric T-head. It's been a while since I've had this off. It's a good idea to take things apart and check them out from time to time, see if they need any maintenance. this close one off first. Maybe I can swivel it around enough to get in. Yeah. Okay. So now I'm going to take my motor cable, stick it behind there, and up through the slot. Perfect. Check it out. That's going to be nice. Now I'll be able to tie wrap those together. It'll also allow movement for when I move the shaft up and down. And by the way, you can fully adjust up and down still with the Revolution Sonar attached. It does not prohibit you from making this motor go shallower or deeper, which is important to me, since a lot of times I fish calm lakes, but other times I fish rough water like the Columbia, and I need to be able to put the motor all the way down when I'm fishing that rough water, or else my trolling motor prop doesn't bite and hold the boat in place. So this is again from Ashmore Products. It's a kit that also comes with the rings for the shaft to hold your, well, you saw that in my earlier video. Okay, got that tight. Got that tight. Okay, now I just have to go ahead and put the tie wraps on, run my cable all the way down, run it down through my bow, reattach the bow plate to the front of my boat, and I am done at that point, other than the setup and operation. So here's the transducers mounted. See if I got that at the right angle. That's up a little too high, I think I need to go, no, that's about right. Maybe one notch down, but I think that's about right. We'll know when I get out on the water. I'll test it for sure. I'll probably set my, no, I think I'll keep it, since I'm fishing deep water right now, I'll keep this down at this angle, but I can adjust it perfectly flat for when I'm fishing in shallow water, really shallow water, shallow flats, and I can point it down when I'm fishing in deep water, fishing in 35 feet to 65 feet of water. That'll be really helpful, being able to adjust that like that. All right, there's the, that's basically how it's going to be. Okay. These cables tie wrap together. By the way, these transducer cables from Lowrance for the active target are designed to be able to be used with these cable ties. They made them extra heavy duty so that you can't ruin them, won't ruin them by pinching them. Put that together. Try it like that for now. May have to adjust these later when I get on the water and put it through its paces. Cradle the other one in between. They say I'll make my final adjustments after I've moved it up and down several times. This one behind it. Reusing cable ties. No sense in wasting them. Okay. Okay. Go. Got to leave enough slack in here for the motor to go 370 degrees or whatever it is, that it'll go all the way around, and I'll check that shortly. And that's pretty much all the motor assembly. Okay, I just turned power on, and I've got a blue flashing LED indicating that the power is connected okay, and we'll start the setup procedure. Again, I've left the pedal disconnected for the moment so that I can try different locations to see where I'm going to like using it the most. Okay, and just want to show you, as I was saying earlier, that you can still move your trolling motor deeper or shallower, and I'll show you that. I've got it in the deepest setting right now, and I'll put it up for shallower. See, it still slides all the way up. You're not really losing anything, maybe an inch or two, and that's the most, but I've still got almost my full depth range. And for day in and day out, I generally put it right about there. Pretty sweet. Nice looking. Okay, so there you have it. That's the installation procedure on my Ghost 52-inch. It'll be very similar for any of the other versions or models that you have for your trolling motor, and also for your whatever live imaging system you're using. So I hope that helps you, and hope your installation goes well. If you make sure you stay tuned and subscribe so that you can see on the water demonstrations of how it's used, which will be coming up sometime in the near future. This is Marc Marcantonio. Ciao.